Roger, go for deploy.
And I think it's probably important to understand what I'm all about and my philosophy, because I truly believe that there isn't a one-size-fits-all diet plan. As much as people want that, you know, they like it all boxed up and fits nicely into something like a diet plan, and that's what sells. Like, you know, that's what sells books. And
this is the one.
Yeah,
crack the code.
Exactly. And yes, it's worked for that person or the author, and that's great, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to work for everyone.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Adventure Fit Radio. Today, what we have for you is we have an episode with Joe Guy. So this is another flashback episode. Basically, this is an episode from about a year and a half ago nearly. We've been doing this for a while now. So a little bit of an update of what's going on there. So we are just giving ourselves a little break from recording. I've been away and had a lot going on, and we're also Tommy's moving to Bali, so we're trying to have a bit of a break so we can figure out what we do with Adventure Fit Radio going forward. Adventure Fit Radio will carry on. Me and Tommy are going to sit down and record a ton of shows with some cool guests, and also just me and Tommy before he shoots off. Not sure how long he's going to be over there for. Really cool opportunity for him. What we're going to do is we may, I think, be having some different co-hosts on with me going forward. So it'll be Tommy, and it'll be a couple of our other favourites. So in the meantime, please just bear with us. We've got a couple of flashback episodes. Last week was Diane McGrath. Epic chat with Diane McGrath about the potential of moving to Mars and never coming back. And this week is Joe Guy, and it's all about nutrition, basically. This is one of our all-time favourite shows. It's a very long show, but it's all filled with absolute goodness, and definitely when we released it, and still to this day, one of our most popular shows we've ever recorded. So you guys are going to love it. Before you head in and check out the show, check out True Protein, our sponsor for today's show. True Protein are a supplement company from Australia who are absolutely amazing with everything that they do. So basically, guys, if you want any of your proteins, your meal replacement blends, your mass gainers, your carbohydrates, creatines, health food powders, sleep and recovery proteins, literally everything under the sun, True Protein have it. And they have it in really high quality, so much so that most of Australia's high-level athletes and some of our highest-level sporting clubs use True Protein. So check them out, guys. You can check them out at www.trueprotein.com.au and use the code ADVF for 10% off. Also, guys, we are brought to you by Adventure Fit Travel. So Adventure Fit Travel, guys, basically what we have coming up over the next year, we have a bunch of epic trips all around the world, traveling with like-minded people. Basically, guys, we're trying to improve the world through travel, exercise, mindfulness, and conversation. That's what we're all about. That's what we're here to do. So, over the next 12-month period, we have Vietnam coming up in August. We're wrapping up sales for that right now. South Africa in September, Iceland and the Auroras in November. We have an alumni-only trip for our past trippers. They voted on it, and so they get to go on it to Argentina over New Year's. You guys, most of you listening probably aren't available to jump on that one, but that's something that we do for our alumni. Then we've got Mexico in Feb, Everest Base Camp in April, and Thailand in May. We'll also have Bali coming back next year, and then we'll be back into Vietnam and so forth. So we might do a few private trips along the way, I would assume, but that's our stable of trips. If you want to come join us on one of those, guys, you'll have the best time of all time, and you can do so by heading to www.adventurefittravel.com and using the code RADIO at checkout for 10% off. Anyway, guys, here's the show. Welcome back to Adventure Radio, guys. We are here with Joe Guy. Joe has joined us for a chat about all things diet today. Before I throw to Jo and introduce her properly, we'll go to Tommy, who's on my left as usual, and we'll start with Tommy's tribute.
Excellent. Well, welcome aboard, Joe. This is a song that I really started listening to about 3 weeks ago, and I thought I'd learn it and then write a tribute for you. So here we go. I don't need a pick for this. All right. Have you heard this song before? By... Oh, what's it called? I've completely forgotten who this is. That's actually the name of the song. It's like... by the bloody... Anyway, I'll play it.
Not yet, but I might.
That's right. Once there was this girl who rode a bike from London to Paris on her own, but when she finally came back, she got herself right into nutrition. She couldn't quite explain it, and now she's always in it. Now she works with people, helping them with weight loss, muscle gain, and life. And she loves to CrossFit, but not really anymore. If it wasn't for a man named Huey, I'd have her as my wife. But let's talk about the mind. Let the show unwind.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful.
Well, I wrote, she loves to CrossFit, but I just found out that you don't anymore. So, and I'm the same, so it's great.
I do a bit. I do a bit.
We sort of like to CrossFit.
That was good. I'm really looking forward to the time when we're rolling in the Benjamins, Tommy, and I don't have to lean over with my headphone to pick up the guitar. It sucks that now we're recording because people will be able to see our
Joe
they couldn't tell otherwise.
Loves to Bill's just doesn't work.
No, that was incredible. Thank you.
Jo, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
No worries. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Jo, a little bit about who you are, and
Yeah, okay. So I am an accredited practicing dietitian and a health coach. So in my uni course, I did a lot of clinically based work. So most people ask, what's the difference between a nutritionist and a dietitian?
That was my next question.
Yeah.
Fuck, I'm stumped now.
So the main difference is really that a dietitian is qualified to work in hospitals, where a nutritionist isn't, I guess. That's the main difference. So at uni, I did a lot of work in hospitals and absolutely hated it. I mean, they do have a very important place, but I just felt that people are in there, it's the end of the road, like they've had the leg amputated from poorly controlled diabetes, and I was coming in saying, eat your low GI carbohydrates and cut out sugar, and I just found it a bit futile. So I decided to go into the preventative side of things and go into more of your education. So I went into workplace health and going into companies and running health and wellbeing programs.
Cool.
So did that for, quite a few years. And over the years, I've just started to develop my own philosophy around nutrition and health, and have eventually decided to start my own practice and my own business. So that's been going for about 12 months in Melbourne. So I see clients for a whole different range of reasons. Tommy sung about a few there.
Yep.
So definitely fat loss is a really big one. Sporting performance and muscle gain. I do see a lot of CrossFitters. I see a lot of gut issues, just overall energy levels. I see quite a few eating disorders as well. But also people just coming because they are just so confused about nutrition. Like there's just so much misinformation out there. Social media makes it really confusing. Like there's, everyone's an expert, everyone's got an opinion. And also just like the science around nutrition is confusing as well. So one day a study will come out saying coffee's really good for you. The next day a study will come out saying coffee's really bad for you. So, and then the media grab onto that and just make it whatever they want to. So right. People just come with like, am I doing the right thing? They just want, questions answered, meal ideas, recipes, that sort of stuff. So, so I do a lot of one-on-one, but I also do quite a lot of seminars as well, particularly in CrossFit gyms, other sort of like personal training studios, and then I still do a bit of workplace health as well, so corporate health programs.
Do you still find that people think that carbs and fats will make you fat? Like, do people still...
Fat makes you fat.
Fat makes you fat, Are people still that...
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So, definitely still demonising certain macronutrients for sure. Fat is a big one. So we had the whole low-fat movement since the 70s. So that is really ingrained in most people's minds. And it is very confusing because we use the same word for being overweight as the macronutrients.
Yeah,
so I think that's just...
100%.
Yeah, that's right.
It's very false advertising. Yeah. It's branded. It's terrible branding.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
Look how carbohydrate that bloke is over there. It
doesn't roll the same way.
No, it doesn't work.
Exactly.
That's just carb as fuck.
Yeah. I'm protein as fuck.
So, that's what I learned at uni. Like, low fat was the way to go, carbohydrates, 6 to 11 serves of breads and cereals. Like, that's what we actually learnt. So for people that haven't really changed with, the science, like that's still being practiced out there as well.
Well, the healthy food pyramid only got updated whenever it was a year or two ago in Australia. And then that was going through schools. The processed carbohydrates was the base of your nutrition on the healthy food pyramid. And that's the thing that, like you talk about in university, you were that's what you were taught. And for the people that are listening, just audio-wise, Jo isn't 70 years old and just sounds young. She's young. You know what I mean? It was yesterday that effectively that you were learning a lot of the wrong information. And for something like health, which is the biggest thing in the world, basically, the biggest thing, the most important thing to every person out there, it's funny that it slipped under the radar with all the wrong science and it was able to get this far. How has that happened?
Yeah, there's probably a lot of things that have influenced it over the years. Probably the biggest one that I get asked a lot is around fat and cholesterol and saturated fats and that whole diet myth. And that's how the high carbohydrate movement sort of came in the breads and cereals, because we thought that fat was the devil. So if we take fat out, we have to replace it with something else. So that's where the carbohydrates came in. So I think the original studies done in the 50s was actually done on mice or rabbits. No, it was done on rabbits, and they fed rabbits a really high saturated fat diet, and their cholesterol went through the roof. But the problem with that is that rabbits aren't meant to eat saturated fat. They're like herbivores. They eat plants. So that's where it originally stemmed from, and then there was the whole...
That's so dumb.
Yeah, exactly. And this is what our science is based on. Like, it's extrapolated from animal studies, and so it's never... You can't really just take anything for face value. Like, you have to go back and look at, what was the study done on, what was the population size, all that sort of thing plays a really big role. And then I'm sure you've probably heard of the Ankel Keys professor study, where the 7 countries study, where he looked at 7 countries, and the countries with the highest saturated fat had the highest rates of heart disease.
There you go.
But the problem with that is he actually just cherry-picked his data. So I think there was there was 25 countries in his study, and there was absolutely no correlation whatsoever. So he just picked out the countries where that was the case.
So he made the correlation.
Yeah, exactly. And then somehow that got into the whole, government, and it just rolled from there. So
it's funny. It's funny that that's the problem with the studies that you hear is depends who is also funding the studies.
Oh, exactly. 100%,
because
100%.
if you get a bunch of data and you spend a lot of money getting all this data in the world, you can really frame it whichever way you like, depending on whose side you're really fighting on. But
definitely.
So I don't know. Let's say say somebody comes in and wants to see you and they want to come in for, let's touch on the biggest one first, and that is obviously fat loss. Everybody wants to be trim and look good naked, all that stuff. So what do you say to someone who comes in, say they've got a regular diet, they eat reasonably well, but they eat a bit of crappy stuff? Like, there's all these diets out there, so whether it's a low carb diet, whether it's total ketogenic diet, whether it's paleo, like what would you say to somebody that wants to come in and wants to trim up and lose fat?
Okay, so that's a big question, and I think it's probably important to understand what I'm all about and my philosophy, because I truly believe that there isn't a one-size-fits-all diet plan. As much as people want that, they like it all boxed up and fits nicely into something like a diet plan, and that's what sells. That's what sells books. And
this is the one.
Yeah,
crack the code.
Exactly. And yes, it's worked for that person or the author, and that's great, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to work for everyone. So it really does depend on people's age, their gender, their genetics, their body type, their activity and their goals, their current health status, their psychology around eating and food, their budget, like all these sorts of things come into play. So I take all those things into consideration, and I also take a really holistic approach to my clients as well. So I'm not going to just look at the food that's on someone's plate. Yes, of course, I look at that, but there's a whole lot of other things that can play a big role, particularly in fat loss. So I'll look at things like stress, I'll look at sleep, of course, their activity level. I'll look at if they're happy in their job. So if someone's coming home and polishing off a whole packet of rice crackers and a whole tub of hummus because they've been absolutely miserable.
Hummus.
Do you like that word?
I do like that. That's just a really fun word.
Hummus.
And the emphasis was so good. It's a really hummus.
Sorry, continue.
Sorry, Joe.
I'll have to say it like that every time now.
We have a different meaning for the hummus.
Okay, I don't want to know what that is.
It's
not right now.
No.
Not on this train of thought.
No. Okay, so yeah, maybe we'll say tzatziki.
Well, we have another name for that as well.
Okay, avocado dip. But
that's good.
Yeah, so if they're absolutely miserable in their job and they're stuffing their face with a packet of Tim Tams, whatever it might be, it's obviously not about the food. So if I don't ask these questions, I'll just say stop eating the Tim Tams, and that's obviously not going to work. So definitely taking that holistic approach is really important for me. I'll give you a good example, actually, why that's important in terms of fat loss. So I have a client, he's actually quite young. He's 17 and he's a footballer, so he really wants to get into the AFL. So he's still at school. He's training really hard, but they said you have to drop a bit of body fat. So I think, you'd do a lot better if you were a little bit lighter. So we chatted about everything, about his diet, and obviously his nutrition is going to be really important. His recovery is going to be super important. So we're talking about that. And then I asked him about his sleep. And it turns out he's only sleeping a few hours a night because he's going to school, going to training, coming home, and then playing Xbox and computer games and stuff online with his friends till like 3 a.m.
Right.
And then he's getting up, going to school, training really hard. And we know that sleep is so important for your recovery. It's when all your, immune system repairs, and it's obviously very important for fat loss as well. He's probably going to be craving a lot more sugary foods the next day. It messes up your hormones. So that's a really good example of how things can, why I need to
affect each other.
Yeah, exactly.
So with the sleep one, for example, because me and Tommy were talking about how much bro science comes out of our mouth. So I'm not going to try and
terrible amounts.
The last show we just released, we talked about global warming, and I famously now talked about how I believe that global warming the world will get so hot that we'll end up in an ice age. And I know no science behind it, and I think that I may have been wrong, judging by what we've been told from the listeners.
Yep.
So tell us the science of sleep and how that can affect you. You just said then that it'll affect your fat loss and it'll stuff up your hormones. Like if you're not getting enough sleep, you're getting 3 hours sleep. What does that actually do to your body, apart from training wise, like for new nutrition?
Yeah. So in terms of fat loss and hormones, what actually happens is you get an imbalance of hormones. So you'll get an increase in ghrelin, which is your hunger hormone. So when you wake up, you'll have really high levels of ghrelin. So you're going to feel a lot more hungry than you would if you've had a very restorative sleep. So when you sleep, then you'll get higher levels of leptin, which is your satiety hormone. So that's probably the main difference. Then when you're feeling tired and crappy, your energy levels are low, you're going to crave those more sugary carbohydrate type foods, and then that starts you on this blood sugar roller coaster, and then you're kind of just setting yourself up for disaster. So taking out the whole recovery aspect of things, that's probably the main component when we're looking at weight loss.
And if somebody also has somebody has kind of personal issues, like you said, they're really stressed at their job, or they're in a bad relationship or something like that, do you refer them on? Like, do you use another allied health professional? Do you say, look, I don't think we're really going to get any progress until you go and see a psychologist and talk through some things, or what do you do in that situation?
Yeah, definitely. I do refer to a psychologist. But also sometimes it's just making the person aware of their behaviour. They might not even realise that that's why they're doing it. So I've got one client at the moment, and she is really unhappy in her job, and just as a bit of a reward, she'd drive home, and instead of going home and preparing a healthy dinner, she'd get a burger and chips or something that, that's going to make her feel good. And she didn't even really realise that that's why she was doing it. So she's actually applying for new jobs now, just from me just pointing it out to her, and it's just creating a bit of a shift in their thought patterns. But certainly if it's out of my scope, I will refer on. So but I feel like I didn't really answer your question properly before in terms of if someone wants to lose weight. So my only real food principle is to eat real food. So no fads, just eating real whole food as nature intended. So eating the whole egg with the yolk, because I look at the yolk and I see choline, which is super important for metabolism and muscle function, and there's fat-soluble vitamins and all that sort of stuff. So really just if it comes out of the ground, off a tree or from an animal, it's okay to eat. So that's my real number one food principle. And then from there, it just depends on the person. So as I said before, taking into all those factors, really if someone comes to me and they need to lose weight, it will generally be a step-by-step process. So giving someone a diet or a meal plan, count your macros, do this, 40% protein, whatever it might be, it's just really, really difficult for someone that doesn't really know where to begin. So it might be the first thing I'll look at is correcting any sort of micronutrient or any sort of nutrient deficiencies. So generally, if someone's deficient in a certain nutrient, that's making them feel really crappy. They're feeling tired, lethargic, they can't train, they're not burning fat as a fuel, they might not be having a restorative sleep, and it all interplays with each other. So I'll look at correcting any of those deficiencies. Quite often that's a lack of protein, certainly your micronutrients like magnesium, zinc, or it might be essential fatty acids like omega-3. And then it'll just be, okay, so where are we going to start? Let's just start with breakfast. What do you think you can do for breakfast? For a lot of my clients that are really busy, it might be something like a smoothie. Okay, great. So quite a lot of my clients actually go out and buy a NutriBullet or something like that. And then I know that they're getting protein, they're getting good fats. We can add some vegetables in there to start to correct those micronutrient deficiencies. And then once they start just nailing that for 2 weeks or even 4 weeks, but they need to be doing it consistently, then we can move on to the next thing.
Okay.
So what would let's just put it into practical terms.
Yep.
If I was going to start the day with the perfect smoothie,
yes,
just for health and wellness, and I've got a NutriBullet over there.
Yes, I could see it.
And I normally have spinach or kale.
Perfect.
Then I have blueberries.
Yep.
Avocado, coconut water, and I used to put chia seeds in there.
And a Snickers bar.
Banana. What's that?
And a Snickers bar.
And a Snickers bar. And a Snickers bar. And a banana. That's my smoothie. How does that rate, or what would you start the day with?
It's pretty good.
It's tasty.
It's almost there. So the main ingredient or macronutrient that you're missing is probably protein. So I would put a couple of raw eggs in there.
I did that. I've done that before. doesn't really.
Now it comes out.
Doesn't really.
No, you don't.
It doesn't really funky up the taste as much as what I
No,
thought.
it
You can't
doesn't.
really,
It's
you
fine.
can't really tell too much.
It doesn't.
So, but that's what you would do. You would get people on. Like, what's your daily smoothie?
My smoothie, so I kind of like an avocado chocolate one.
Ooh.
So I don't have smoothies every
me
single
more.
day, but I'll tell you the ingredients in a sec. But the main things that we're looking at when we're building a smoothie is we want protein, we want healthy fats, we want your green leafies, and then some fruit for carbohydrates.
And some chocolate.
And some chocolate. Yeah, exactly. Cacao. It's like one of the highest antioxidant foods in the planet.
There you go.
So yours was really good because you had the healthy fats, you got the carbs, you got the greens, but it was just lacking in a little bit of protein. So that's why the raw eggs are good. People generally freak out when I say that, but when they try it, they're like, can't even taste it. A really good quality, clean protein powder can be an option. A hemp protein is generally a really good one. It's the least processed.
Blaze that shit up in the morning.
Oh, this is pretty good.
Yeah, so in my smoothie, I like using avocado as the fats because I don't actually like bananas. So
Really?
no.
My mate Louis is like that. Freaks out.
Yeah.
He's like gags when he sees banana.
Really?
Yeah.
We travel through Europe with him, so we'd like put bananas in his sleeping bag and stuff like that.
That's what my sister and I like a little
Really?
bit. Yeah, we've both got a bit of a phobia. I think she trained me to have the phobia. My older sister
Yeah.
just did whatever she did, but still got it. So
Phobia bananas. There must be a thing for that.
yeah,
Banana phobia.
banana phobia, definitely. So I'll have the avocado. I'll put blueberries. I'll put a plant-based chocolate protein in. Sometimes I'll just use cacao and then hemp seeds for the protein. Almond milk. What else? Spinach and coconut.
Okay, cool.
I've got when you mentioned that client you had before about driving past and getting a burger and chips and stuff to get away from the almost like an escape.
Yeah.
I'm really interested in that sort of stuff and why some of the time we do that. Like I've heard that eating all those fatty and sugary foods can trigger the same receptors in our mind, in our brain that's the same as cocaine, and it's just an addiction sort of thing.
Yeah, that's true.
But why is that purely the reason why we look to get those foods in times of stress, or is there actually something else why we're like, is it the actual food genuinely does taste better, or I don't know?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both of those things. Like we've just grown up knowing that they're the treat foods, but they definitely do, as you said, food can be like a drug. So particularly with sugar, there has been a lot of studies showing that it stimulates the part of the brain that cocaine does, so that reward centre in the brain. Certainly with gluten and wheat, that does the same thing, as well as casein in cow's milk and dairy. So with gluten and
I love all that
casein,
shit.
Yeah.
well, there's actually a
drug addict.
scientific reason for it.
Yeah.
So
I feel so bad now.
yeah, exactly. And that's why sometimes we're just working against our bodies. People just think, I don't have any willpower. But these foods are actually, playing havoc on your brain and your biochemistry. So with gluten and casein, they actually form compounds called glutamorphin and casomorphin. And these are like opioids. They're morphine-like, so they actually cross the blood-brain barrier and they stimulate those parts of the brain, so the reward centres of the brain. So you actually get a little mild kind of pleasurable feeling from these foods. Like you might not notice it when you eat a sandwich or something, but just these tiny little effects do create kind of an addictive behaviour towards these foods.
Like a micro dose of heroin.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing is as good as heroin. Let me tell you that. I'll show you.
Ice.
Ice, yeah.
That's
there you go.
interesting.
That's
I don't
interesting.
know what I was listening to. But I was listening to something the other day. So when we have, why do we binge on unhealthy food? I have a question. Like, say you've got, where was I listening to it? I think I was listening to a Rogan podcast or something. But they were talking about, say you've got some relatively healthy, tasty snack. You'll only eat maybe the right portion, 1 or 2 portions of that relatively healthy, tasty snack because you get nutritional value and your body can receive that and that notes that. Whereas if you get like a bag of Doritos and you're still getting the same taste, so it's that tasty snack, but it's not healthy. So and your body doesn't get the nutrients it wants. So your body just wants to keep feeding on it. Is that a truth? Yeah. So that's another reason why we binge then.
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
Definitely. Particularly on those processed foods. Our bodies just don't really know what to do with it. Yeah, so it's not really registering. Like if you tried to eat, 20 apples, you just wouldn't be able to do it because of all the fibre. Your body will just tell you that, it's had enough and you literally have to stop eating. But with those types of foods, there's just no signals to tell you that you've had enough. So
your body's just looking around like, where's the nutrients? Give us the nutrients. Give us more. There's got to be some around here somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
That's really interesting, yeah. Hope Siri's going off there.
What? That's what I reckon. That's what Siri just
That
said.
is insane.
Tell us more, Siri. Tell us more.
I'm not sure I understand.
How weird was that?
That was
Siri
insane.
and I are on the same page.
Yeah.
We had Siri on the show a
We did
couple of
have
days
Siri on
ago.
the show, yeah.
Told us about climate change. We asked Siri and started pre-versing about climate change. So he's just wants more action.
He does.
He thinks he's the star now.
Siri's got an ego now, and he reckons he's a dietitian.
Just popped out of nowhere.
Yeah, I know. Sorry about that. Okay, so for these people, so you'll build. You'll going back to where we were. You'll build. You'll start off with little changes, like you'll implement. I'm lost my marbles. Lost my marbles.
Every time you said so today, I'd have $17. That's a lot of money.
All right, so you'll implement little changes for somebody who's got a terrible diet. You'll just start with breakfast and just start building that real food in, and then. What do you do? What do you do when you're going to something like performance? Like, do you actually have people that come to you and then you'll nut out and you'll look at their macros at 100% and you'll give them a proper food plan, or do you think it's a better way for somebody who's looking for high performance to just do the same thing, just eat good amounts of healthy food in the right categories and stuff? Do you think it's better to be strict with that, or it's better to just have an eyeball, good food kind of diet?
Yeah, I think it really depends on the athlete's goals and what the sport is. So definitely if they're a really high performance athlete, looking at macros is going to be important. But I don't think every athlete needs to weigh and measure their scoops of protein powder.
Yeah.
I think it can be done in a much more effective way. So I will look at macros in the background, but I won't generally go and get people to weigh and measure their food. So I'll use different sorts of measurements that they can relate to understand portions and portion control.
Like a fistful of steak.
Exactly.
Handful of nuts,
Yeah, that's it. So the reason I'm not so keen on weighing and measuring and tracking everything that goes into your mouth is that I think numbers really do create obsessions. And I've seen that quite a lot. And I also think that it takes away your natural ability to read your body's signals. So like we were talking about before with being able to listen to your body and know when to stop eating and that sort of stuff. I think if you're so focused on just counting those macronutrients, it does kind of lead away from you actually listening to your own body signals. It's not always an exact science as well. There's a lot of error in nutrition that I think people don't take into account. So the databases that you use, even like in the laboratories, the testing that's done, all that sort of stuff, causes a fair bit of discrepancy. So if you're worried about a gram here and a gram there and you're doing your head in about it, I just think it can create a lot of issues, and it's just not something that you need to worry about because the human body is such an incredible thing. I think if people knew what their bodies could do, they'd be in absolute awe of themselves. And your body will know what to do with it. So I don't think people need to stress too much. But certainly I will look at macronutrients for more high performance athletes, depending on the sport. But like I said, so you'll look at a palm size of protein. I'll know that that's roughly between 20 and 30 grams of protein. So how many palm sizes do we need to have at each meal? So I'll just work it out that way.
It's also not natural, like counting and all this sort of stuff. I just feel like we had this massive, ridiculous chat on, the evolution of the human body and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But they weren't counting stuff back then. Like there was just kind of a thing of eat what the earth has when you're hungry, and then don't eat too much because we need to save old mate over here hasn't eaten enough.
Yeah.
It's like, is it really that hard? You know?
Yeah.
Exactly.
We know exactly what happened back
Oh,
in
we know.
the
We know.
hundreds of thousands of years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There was no counting. The counting
There was definitely not counting.
and
there was global warming.
That's it. But
Don't you
it's
reckon? Do people just take it too far?
Yeah, I think it can be taken too far. Like, I think it definitely does have a place as well.
Right.
For some people, and it really does work well for some people, but certainly not for everyone. And to be honest, I don't see too many people where we need to go down that path of weighing and measuring and all that sort of stuff. But I think it is, and I do try and teach my clients to listen to their own body.
Yep.
But every body is different as well. So even like your gut bacteria is going to influence how many calories you extract from food. So different people with a very different gut microbiome will eat the same muffin with the same number of calories. One person that might have a bit of an overgrowth of bad bacteria, they'll actually extract more calories from that muffin and store it as fat compared to the person that has a really healthy gut microbiome. So there's all these things that, that come into play that isn't just about how many grams of carbs, proteins and fats, and I think it does take away from the importance of those micronutrients as well. If we're just focusing on those macros, I think you can certainly achieve a particular body composition by macronutrients, but I don't think you are you might not be particularly healthy. So I like to combine both of those things and look at the health perspective as well as being fit and looking a certain way.
Sure. Yep. So what about gut health? Like that, I feel like that's kind of like a lot of people are saying it's kind of like a buzz sort of expression now, like gut health and all this sort of stuff. Yeah. Can you shed some light on what it is and what like an easy way to achieve, good gut health would be?
Oh gosh, you're going to start me
25 words
now.
or less.
Yeah. I could talk underwater about gut health. So
well, we have some water here. And,
I can hold you upside down. We can fill this thing over there if you want. Tommy can hold your legs.
Okay, maybe not.
Direct your head, and then we'll keep recording.
Okay, where to begin? It definitely is a very big hot topic in the nutrition world at the moment, but it is a really important one because so many people do have a lot of issues. So mostly the people that I see, they either have some sort of digestive issues, but it might be presenting in other ways. So things like skin issues, sinus issues. So for example, I've just recently had a client who came to me and his nose was just absolutely running like a tap, had really itchy eyes and just a whole heap of sinus issues, wanted to lose a bit of weight as well. We just did 6 weeks of working on his gut health and his sinuses have completely cleared up.
Really?
It's actually been life-changing for him.
Yeah.
For people that do suffer from that, it's actually really debilitating.
Oh, it would be.
Yeah.
Pink eye runny nose boy. You'd be getting picked on. You'd be getting picked on in the schoolyard for sure.
Absolutely.
I'd pick on an adult that had a pink eye. No, I shouldn't say.
Wow. This guy's like 55, but he does CrossFit and now he's like PBing in the gym and he competed in an in-house comp and won it, and he's just like kicking all these goals, and it's just, it's really good to see. So gut health can influence, so many different aspects of your health.
Alrighty, guys, just a little break in between our show to thank our sponsors. So we're brought to you by True Pride today. True Pride are a wealth creation service for ambitious individuals and families looking to worry less, take control, and get ahead. Me and Tommy are dealing with True Pride. We are broke as 10 men, and we need cashola, and True Pride are providing us with that cashola.
Cashola.
Yes. So we're working through our budgets at the moment. So Tommy's saving $100 a week.
Yep.
So this is at the cost of $97. He's saving $100 a week, so that's $400. And the aim is to get to about $150. That's kind of average. And me, I haven't even got that far because I've been, I got lots of money going everywhere at the moment, so we're just waiting it out. But Tommy, you been loving it?
Oh, mate. Well, I mean, I've already broken even. And I'm already in profit now just based on my own saving. And it's just little things that sure you can do by yourself, but you probably won't. And if you just spend that initial joining fee, well, obviously you don't now, but if you just spend that little bit of money at the startup, these are lifestyle changes,
Yeah, it's good. www.truepride.com.au/ADVF. Get your joining fee waived after you have a call, and if you decide to go ahead. We're also brought to you by Crave. So, guys, I've signed 4 or 5 people up to Crave now, and they range from gym owners to a protein supply company to a residential clothing store to heroin addicts. What did I say heroin addict? I meant to say heroin dealer. Signed up. Fucked my gag. But anyway, so we've been signing up a bunch of different people to Crave, and any business can perform with Crave. So if you want to upscale your business or you want to get more time back in your life, head to www.carve.ph/ADVF. We have not sent any heroin addicts Carve's way. Fuck, that's such an idiotic joke, and I stuffed it up as well. Head to www.carve.ph/ADVF to get your 10 hours free. And here's Joe, and here's the show. And this guy, for example, like why was his diet affecting his gut health, and then that just took his whole immune system down, or how did it actually give him these ailments?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it can really stem from a whole host of things. So if you've ever had a course of antibiotics in your life and you didn't do any sort of repair work afterwards, you're probably going to have a bit of an imbalance still.
Shit.
So it can really affect your
My gut health is spiking right now.
Well, that's it. Like, we've all gone through it. We've all probably had numerous courses of antibiotics. So that obviously kills off all the good bacteria as well as the bad guys. So that causes some imbalances. Obviously, poor food choices. So things like refined sugar, gluten actually directly affects the gut barrier and leads to something called leaky gut, which I can talk about in a little bit. What else? Any of like your inflammatory foods, like your refined seed oils, like all your omega-6 seed oils are damaging to the gut. Right. Any sort of medications, particularly things like the pill for females. Stress is a big one. So cortisol really affects the gut and bacteria. So there's really, there's so many different things that can affect your gut health. I'll give you an example of myself, so just to make it a bit relevant. I actually had
You don't have leaky butt syndrome right now, do you?
Leaky butt.
Because we can get some protective material on the couch if this is what we're going to about to broach.
We should bring that in the email. Actually, if you do have leaky butt, just make sure that all that guys should know that in the future.
Sorry, dude.
I just sit on the floor once, maybe. Get off the nice couch.
Yeah, that's right. That's gold. Leaky butt syndrome. That can't be a thing, surely.
Shit.
I'm crying. I'm probably going to say that next time when I'm explaining it to a client. Oh,
Look,
I think
I'm sorry,
you've got
mate.
leaky butt.
Leaky gut. I'm sorry.
Oh, shit.
Very good.
Oh, gosh. Okay. Where was I? I'll call it gastrointestinal permeability. So.
Sounds a little bit. That's nowhere near as funny.
Yeah.
The gag stop right there.
Yeah. We'll get serious again. So, so a few years ago, I had my appendix out. So with any sort of gut surgery, that can cause a lot of imbalances because obviously they're fiddling around down there. There's disinfectant. You have a whole host of antibiotics. So any sort of gut surgery can really affect gut health. But then also, funnily enough, the appendix does actually have a point to be in the human body. So it's like a little house of good bacteria. So it's a little sack of good bacteria. And if you get an upset stomach or you're traveling or you eat something a bit dodgy, you might get an upset tummy. It actually then floods your gut with all these good bacteria that's housed in the appendix. So without an appendix, I don't have that anymore. So I became very susceptible to getting a lot of gut infections, got things like Giardia and all these terrible parasites. And so that's what stemmed. The surgery is what influence my gut health. So there's a lot of different causes that can lead to poor gut health. But I actually went down a path of I didn't take antibiotics to get rid of any of the parasites. I went down a natural route, did a lot of gut repair. I actually became lactose intolerant. Most people become lactose intolerant after having Giardia, a parasite. But from all the gut healing work I did so much research and so much self-experimentation and eventually I've healed up my gut that I can pretty much eat anything now with no issues.
Really? Wow,
I
that's
don't
amazing.
eat a lot of dairy still, but I can certainly have it in bits and pieces and I don't have any problems. So,
wow.
And that's the same with food intolerances. So if you heal up the gut effectively, you can actually eliminate a lot of food intolerances. So I'll explain the gut in a very basic way.
Yeah, I'm really interested in this.
You just have a little bit of an understanding. So if you just imagine the digestive system is like a big long tube that starts at your mouth and ends where you excrete waste. It's the most polite way.
The butt?
Leaky butt.
It's like a tap.
Yeah, so it's just
The
this.
whole mass.
Yeah.
It's not ticky. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, no, sorry.
Yeah, so it's just this big long tube and it's, from your mouth to your bottom, and it's a very, very thin layer of cells. So it's just about a single layer thick. And if you think about, it's a bit of a weird way of thinking about it, but if you think about whatever is inside this tube is actually still outside your body. So the gut barrier, which is that single lining of cells, actually decides what enters the body or the bloodstream and what actually just passes out the other end. So when we talk about your gut health, well, there's actually two components. There's that gut barrier and then there's also...
Stop laughing.
I'm not laughing.
I need to find
Joe.
a different word for gut,
that's
don't I?
That's
Tommy
exactly
keeps
right.
looking away because he's laughing. It's making me laugh.
I was trying, actually. I'm sorry.
Sorry, Joe.
That's all good.
Yeah.
So when we talk about gut health, there's the gut barrier and then there's your actual bacteria, which is housed in the lower intestine. So when we have leaky gut or intestinal permeability, that's when we have damage to that gut lining. And I tend to explain it to my clients. It's like a fly screen. So in your house. So the fly screen has just tiny little holes that lets through all the good stuff like oxygen, but it keeps out all the mosquitoes and the flies. But if you actually put a hole in that fly screen, those flies and whatever it might be will come into your house and cause havoc inside your house. And that's the same as your gut. So when we have leaky gut or gastrointestinal permeability, we've actually got larger holes in the gut lining, and it means that things can pass through into the bloodstream that shouldn't actually be in there. The immune system is actually just outside the gut lining. So when it detects something that shouldn't be there, it might be an undigested food particle, it might be a bacteria or a toxin. It sets off this systemic immune response.
Right.
And so inflammatory cytokines are being produced and then they can go around and cause havoc wherever they want to in the body. So that might be getting into your skin and causing things like eczema. It might be getting into your joints and causing joint pain, into your thyroid, causing metabolism issues. But they can also cross the blood-brain barrier and cause like mood disorders and depression. And that's how gut health is related to mental health as well. So,
Wow.
So that's
It's
how it works.
far-reaching, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's why we tend to look at the gut for a lot of other issues that don't often seem necessarily directly related to our digestive health.
Wow. So what about paleo then? Because paleo is obviously very closely linked to the CrossFit world and all this sort of stuff. It's not so much anymore, but I feel like a couple of years ago, if you were a CrossFitter, you did paleo to some degree. And how do you feel about the Paleolithic diet for the everyday individual?
Yeah, I think it's a really good framework because obviously it just cuts out all the processed crap. But again, it is one of those diets that not everyone is going to be suited to it. So certainly for CrossFitters that have really high energy expenditure and they need those carbohydrates, I would say that, some non-gluten grains like brown rice and quinoa, even some oats is going to be absolutely fine. You can always prepare them and soak them and, decrease the phytic acid, which is why they're kind of excluded from the paleo diet. So I think it is a good framework because it does cut out all those processed foods. But I don't necessarily think it is the diet for all CrossFitters and for everyone. Some people really thrive off having some good quality dairy in their diet. Other people aren't great on it, but again, it's just working with the individual to see what works best for them.
Yep, sure thing.
I at two different points in my life, talking about dairy, at two different points in my life, have used dairy, milk per se, or milk, for example, to put on weight. So I've been told just to drink as much milk as humanly possible. And I'm not in the slightest bit lactose intolerant because I can drink milk. Like I was drinking 3 litres a day, just comfortably, just chugging it down.
Chugging it down.
Yeah.
And
straight in the butt.
yeah. And I wanted to make sure, like so many people would say to me, oh, that's got to be so bad for you, drinking all that dairy, drinking all that milk. And then, so I went to a friend of mine who's also a dietitian. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this. And I said to, her name's Alex, and I said to Alex, hey, this is what I'm doing. So my nutrition's pretty good, but I can't eat as much food as I need to put on, I've got a really fast metabolism, to put on the weight that I want to put on as a weightlifter. So I've just been drinking tons of milk, like 3 litres a day. And I said, is that a problem? Like, is there anything you see wrong with that? Or like, what's the go? And she said, whether she's right or wrong, I'm interested to hear your thoughts. She said that if the general populace knew or really got behind the benefits of whole milk, then the whole supplement industry would go out of business. That was what she said. What do you think about like milk in general and using milk for that means to try and bulk up or put on weight, or is it?
Yeah. I think you did the right thing. Definitely.
Yeah, cool.
Yep. It's certainly a great tool for that. I think it does come down to the quality as well. There's such a huge spectrum when it comes to dairy. So you've got your pasteurized, homogenized milk that's come from, animals that have been feeding on grain. And so the quality of that milk is going to be very different to an unhomogenized milk that comes from grass-fed animals. So I think quality does play a really big role when it comes to dairy. But it does have, some great nutrients in it. So there, in the holistic health world, there is a theory that, and this is a little, I think, why some people kind of diss dairy a little bit, that it is very acidic within the body. But I'm not too sure about the science behind that. I'm not completely convinced on that. So I think for people that can tolerate it, then it's absolutely fine. It is very nutritious and great for putting on weight and bulking up.
Yeah, well, I just found that for me, I had a really fast metabolism, and I was competing as a weightlifter at 80 in the 85 kilogram category, but I was weighing about 82, 83, and then just eating like a good amount of food, living a regular life. I couldn't really put on any more weight.
Yeah.
But I needed to be about 87. So, for me, it was spend a shitload more money on food and spend so much more time throughout the day to actually get that food in.
Yeah.
Because it was I was eating big meals and lots of snacks and stuff. So milk for me was like I'd have like a massive glass or a glass and a half with lunch and then dinner and the same thing and just pump it in. And it was more out of it just made my life easier. And I was able to do it. So I'm glad that it worked well. I was
and
also,
it did work? You did put on the weight?
It worked. But I was also doing this is another thing that we could touch on. So I was training, my weightlifting coach is really old school, and he's a smart guy, but he says to everyone, I know nothing about anything apart from weightlifting. Yeah. So if you ask me for advice, I'll give you some advice in some certain areas, and sometimes I won't. But I asked him about like what I should be eating, and he said that he wanted me to go on a dirty bulk diet. So what I was doing, I would have real sugary. I'd have like a Big M and like some sort of bakery good, because that's like what I get into, like a donut or a muffin on the way home from training every day on the way home from training.
Yeah.
And then at night, I would make sure I had a smoothie that was milk, ice cream, banana, avocado, and whatever other sugary, crappy stuff that I could get in there to get as much calories in before I slept. Mm-hmm. Because I really, with my metabolism, it is really, even with all the milk, it was quite hard to put on weight.
Yeah.
So it worked. I got to 87, 88 kilograms in the blink of an eye, kind of. But like I said, I was doing a lot of dirty bulking as well. So
Yeah.
what would you say to someone who, like me, needed to get into a higher weight category basically, but to do it because I know that what I was doing wasn't particularly healthy.
Yeah.
But it was also it was achievable. You know, I didn't have time to eat 7 meals a day. Like, what would you do to someone who has a fast metabolism who needs to bulk? You know, there's a lot of guys out there that are, you know, always in the gym trying to get big and strong and just look bigger. Mm-hmm. What do you do for people like that?
Yeah, I mean, I've never recommended a dirty bulk before. I guess
Kind of goes against the whole.
Yeah. It definitely gets you to where you want to go. But going back to my philosophy, I guess I want to help people achieve their goals, but, you know, also do it in a healthy way.
Yeah.
So,
Change your lifestyle as well.
Yeah. Because I look at that and I sort of see, well, yes, you're definitely going to put on weight and you've got to your goal. You certainly wouldn't want to do it long term because they're very highly inflammatory foods. So in the long term, it's going to affect your recovery as well. It's going to affect your gut health. It's going to affect all those sorts of things. So I'd look at just increasing carbohydrates, trying to use more of your whole food carbohydrates, but obviously they're a lot more bulky, so you're not going to be able to increase them too much because they're quite filling if they've got fibre in them. So then looking at things like fats, because fats are so energy dense, they're so very high in calories, but they don't take up much volume. So adding a lot of things like coconut oil into your smoothies, like going probably more so that path, but certainly dairy as well is going to be a good one. So I'd look at those sorts of foods.
I'm literally addicted to sugar after that dirty bulk. When I moved into this house 2.5 years ago, I remember getting a Turkish delight from the 7-Eleven downstairs, and I ate it, and I was like, because I don't know why I just felt like a Turkish delight, but I ate it, and I was like, not because of the taste of the Turkish delight.
Shit.
Too sweet.
But the sweetness and the sugar, I was like, oh my God. I hadn't had really sugary, like anything like that in probably 2 or 3 years. I was really, really just, you know, when you phase out that type of food, you don't get that craving for it, you know? And then I had that Turkish delight. I'm like, oh, this is disgusting. And then I started having a little bit more snacky stuff. And then I went on dirty bulk, and now I have a donut every lunchtime.
Yeah. Donut every lunch. Well, do you know what's interesting? Do you remember
I'm not even joking.
Ben Templeton? Ben Templeton, who maybe listened to the show, who did the slam down, the weightlifting.
Yeah.
So this is a guy that actually, this is slightly off left centre, isn't it? Yeah, that's really interesting. Global warming actually is he actually did my Cert 3 and 4. He cut out sugar. He cut out chocolate for like 4 years completely, and he got to the stage where he couldn't even remember. And I don't know if he's eating chocolate or
Couldn't even remember his
anything.
name.
Yeah,
Lost all his brain cells.
he lost his. Moving on. But yeah, he completely cut out chocolate, and then he got to the stage where he couldn't even remember what it tasted like. And so clearly, I've got nothing to add.
Good story.
Okay.
There could be a reason why that's happening to you though, because again, getting back to the whole gut health thing, it does have a big influence on our bodies, but you might have just changed the balance of bacteria in your gut because the bad bacteria feed off sugar. So if you're feeding your body a lot of sugar, you're feeding all those bad guys, that could create a bit of a dysbiosis or an imbalance. And what that actually... Dysbiosis, yeah.
Fuck,
so that's...
sounds, am I going to do it?
So that's just...
Oh my God,
That's just an imbalance of your good and bad bacteria. And so that bad bacteria actually sends out signals saying, you know, give me sugar. So that's probably why you're craving it now and you need the donut.
I literally crave it.
Yeah.
Really?
100%. Yeah, 100%.
Sugar, like what sort of what do you eat today?
So when you're talking about like you walk in use 7-Eleven as an example, I'll walk straight past the candy bars, don't eat candy at all. Sugary stuff like sour worms or that crap, I don't eat any of that.
Yep.
I don't like ice cream. I go straight for, like, I get a muffin or a donut. I get like bakery goods. I don't know why. It's just my go-to. Custard donut or a raspberry and white chocolate donut. And, but I have it with a nice big glass of milk too. It actually makes me...
That's pretty good.
Joe's with me, mate. Did you hear that?
Oh, well,
You're calling our guest a bin now.
Indirectly, I'm calling you both a bin.
So... It just became it started with Big M's after training, and then it just got to the point where I haven't been training that much. But I still eat bakery foods, probably once a day.
Do you reckon that could be a habitual thing though as well?
Yeah,
just literally
definitely.
the fact he's just in the habit of just eating shitty food.
Yeah,
and the body's like, oh yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm not too stressed about it.
You should be. You've got cancer. You got disc by leaky butt. Sorry to say that, mate, but yeah.
Oh fuck. All right, cool. So what about people with eating disorders that come in and see you? So I don't understand. Do you? Is it in your realm to deal with somebody with a that purges or that has bulimia or anorexia? Or do you have to refer those guys on, or do you deal with much of that?
It's more of a team effort. So with all my eating disorder clients, I don't have any bulimic sort of clients.
What's the difference between bulimic and anorexia?
Bulimic makes themselves, this
vomit.
is in layman's terms, make themselves vomit, and then anorexia, I believe, and they choose not to eat.
Yeah, exactly. So anorexia is just very restrictive eating. Whereas bulimic, they will purge after eating.
Yeah.
So I'll work with a psychologist and also their GP as well.
Yeah.
So they're getting all the behavioural, coaching from their psychologist.
Okay.
And then they'll come to me just for some more structure. They generally come. If they're younger, they come with their parents. So, there's a bit of guidance there, but it'll just be working out, what can we start adding in just, bit by bit, just giving them a bit more structure to their diet and talking about how food is affecting their body and just trying to get them to understand that, eating fat isn't going to make you fat and that your cells need these nutrients. And one of my clients is... She certainly does. She's on the border of an eating disorder, but she's stunning. She's getting into modelling and just talked about how fats, every single one of your cells in your body is made up of a double layer of fat. So if you're not eating enough fat, the health of your cells is going to suffer, and that is, on the outside is a reflection of things like your hair and your skin and your nails. And if you're not getting that in your diet, those sorts of things are really going to suffer. So, just trying to educate them in those ways.
One sentence should be taught in school.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just... Because
it's an anxiety thing though. It's an anxiety. Like, you can get anxiety over anything, and the underlying issue here is just anxiety. It's like a what if I do?
Yeah,
it's like, well, what if you do?
Yeah,
it doesn't really matter.
Exactly. Let's just try it and see what happens. And
that would be tough. So they get referred to you after they've already been to their doctor. Do they?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I generally get referred clients from psychologists.
Does anyone come to you initially, and you may think that they could be on the border, like they are showing some signs or symptoms of an anxiety illness? Or?
Not yet. I haven't had someone come to me first. I've generally been referred clients, so I haven't had to seek out a psychologist for someone that I'm a bit worried about. Generally, they've been coming to me, but I'm sure it'll happen. That will happen one day.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but I think people are drawn to you because when I first started out and I became very interested in nutrition, it was probably in about year 11. I wanted to do everything absolutely perfectly, and at that time it was the whole low-fat movement, and I was so strict. I ate 3, perfect meals at the time, but I didn't really snack, and I ate 0 fat, and I was probably what you'd call orthorexic. That's not a term that was around then, but it is now, and it just means almost like a fixation or an obsession with healthy eating. So I was kind of very, very strict. And it was only when I went to university and learnt about biochemistry and how the body worked and anatomy that I kind of understood that, it's okay to have other sorts of foods. Your body knows how to deal with it. And that kind of gave me a lot more balance. But I almost think because I have an understanding of these girls, that's kind of why they're coming to me now.
Yeah.
I can relate to them a little bit better on a personal level.
You can empathise and all that sort of stuff. I think that's so important as well. This is another tangent, but as a coach, I'd often like to try. Well, have a look at me. I'm not trying to say that, but I think it's good to, if someone can't brace their back and is getting back pain and all this sort of stuff, it's good to sort of put yourself through that as well, because you understand it's hey, this actually worked for me. Give this a go.
Yeah, definitely.
As opposed to just, in Chapter 4, it says, big breath in. Fuck, it didn't work.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
So what about like mindset? Let's take a turn away from nutrition for a second. What's some stuff that you do to keep yourself? Yeah, like I remember speaking to you, and we spoke about meditation and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
What's some sort of meditative practices that you do? I love that.
So I think and we were just talking about this before, I think having a morning routine is really, really important just to start your day off right. It's just that bit of peace in your day before the day starts to get manic. So generally, my morning routine now would be take the dog for a walk. It used to be going out into the garage and doing some sort of movement like hanging and bits and pieces, some handstand stuff. But now it's just get the dog out of the house before he tears it apart. But then I will come home and I'll do 15 to 20 minutes of meditation. So I generally recommend the Headspace app for most of my clients. Or the ones that need it, because that's just a really nice, easy one. You've heard of Headspace?
Yeah.
So, the Take 10 program is just 10 minutes for 10 days. That's all you have to do, see how you feel. So that's generally the one I recommend. At the moment, I just do the One Giant Mind app, and it's just music. So I just
One Giant Mind?
One Giant Mind,
Right, so what does that do?
So they have, I can't remember, I think they have 12 days as an intro one, and then you do a 30-day program. And then you just do whatever after that. So it's pretty similar to the Headspace app. It's more of a mantra. So where Headspace talks you through, what to visualize and what to focus on. One Giant Mind is more of just repeating a mantra in your mind.
Right.
And if you're, of course your mind's going to drift off, but it's just noticing that and bringing it back to the mantra.
Yep.
So yeah, quite often I'm thinking about absolutely everything other than the mantra, and I haven't thought of, said the mantra once for 20 minutes,
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's guided?
It's not guided.
It's not guided.
You do the course at the start, and that will explain it all to you, and then you kind of left to your own devices.
Right, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool,
yeah.
okay, I should give that a go.
Yeah, it's
we
really
always
good.
talk about Smiling Mind and Puttify, and I've never heard of One Giant Mind. That's cool.
Yeah, One Giant Mind.
Is it free?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to get on it now.
Yeah, I know. It's got to be free.
It's got to be free,
I cannot pay that $1.
No, why? Well, I mean, I can, but I've got to save up.
Yeah.
Hey, Tommy, have you got goods about the science today?
I do have some GBS. So Joe, you aware of Good About the Science, the way it works?
Vaguely.
Yeah, so
Vaguely.
it's just it's one of our other kooky segments we have on the show. It's basically just I read some weird sort of current events, something good, something not so good, and then something sciencey. Because in case you haven't figured it out by now, Bill and I love science, but we have no idea what even the definition of science is. So
I was calling it science.
Yeah, I was calling it Hamas. So I wasn't calling it that. That is the worst running gag. All right, so the first one is Gorilla Stunt Jumper, 8 Booth, that is his name, 8 Booth, made a heart-stopping 129-foot leap into Orange County, California's Newport Harbor. Barely missing the dock. Now, I've got the footage here, and obviously the listeners can't hear it, but this is what, show notes. Yeah, this is the GIF of it. Check this out.
What'd you say about gorilla?
Yeah, is that
that was him jumping 129 feet.
I thought you said it was a gorilla.
Same. You said gorilla, man.
I did mention gorilla.
Said it was a gorilla.
It's like a gorilla stunt jumper.
Yeah.
You know, like a
G-U-E-R-I-L-L-A.
Gorilla?
Yeah.
Gorilla?
Yeah, I know.
How do you even say that?
Yeah.
It's like guerrilla warfare type thing.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I thought it was a gorilla. You got me more specific. I'm like, fuck, this guy's sick.
This is going to be really cool. Jeez, he's not that hairy at all.
Yeah, I was like, where's the hairy legs?
You ruined it for me, man.
But that's him there. So he's jumping 129 feet and barely missing the dock there. Pretty insane.
Oh.
Great effort. Now, he attached a GoPro to his hand and mouth so we could all have the right footage. My question to you guys, what is the most daring thing you have done, if you've done something that's super daring? Joe, going to put you on the spot right away here.
I'm a bit of a wuss. Like I've always said, I want to go skydiving, but I don't really. Like I never want to.
It is fun. It's actually not that scary. I reckon it was really good. Well, you thought it was way worse than bungee jumping, didn't you?
No, before I did it, I was more scared of it than bungee jumping. But as soon as I jumped, ooh, and you flatten out, I was like, oh, this is cruisy.
Yeah, it's good.
It's really good. Whereas bungee jumping, I was like, oh my fucking God, this fucking sucks.
Yeah, I could not do that. But I'm just trying to think. Probably... I went canyoning in Queenstown and I found that pretty scary, like jumping off really high rocks into little pools and sliding down stuff. And it was freezing cold. So, yeah, that's the first thing that comes to mind.
I couldn't. My sister went. I don't think she went canyoning, but she went cave diving, and like just the idea of going in little nooks and crannies when there's water and stuff.
Claustrophobic.
Not good for claustrophobia.
No,
Not good
that
for claustrophobia.
freaks me out.
I hate it.
It was
I'll do it.
It's hectic.
I'll just
I
hate
did it in New Zealand. It was good.
Yeah. Is it actually?
Do that.
Do you get pretty close confined spaces?
Yeah, from time to time you can. It's in Waitomo Caves, a famous cave system in Waitomo in New Zealand, in the North Island. And what we did, we abseiled down like 30 metres through this little tiny, that was like a tight squeeze. So if you're claustrophobic, but it was only like a tight squeeze for about a metre or two. And then you're into the darkness and you're like, fucking hell. And you go all the way down, you get to the bottom, then you hook on and you flying fox through the cave system for like 100 foot. And then you get off there, you cliff jump into the water, into the river. Then you go river rafting, blackwater rafting. With glowworms and stuff all around you. So sick. Wow, and then you have to. There's so much stuff you have to do. We had to climb up waterfalls, up cave waterfalls. To get out of there. I was like, they were like, you got to put your hand there, and then your hand there, and your leg there. It's really hard. And it was crazy. It was pretty good fun. But anyway, that's
cool.
Caving.
That's caving.
But
Alrighty.
Just going to talk about my most daring.
Go on, tell us.
No, go on.
No, now I want to know about your most daring.
I was just going to say, I jumped off the Sereno car ferry once.
What?
Jumped off the car ferry. That wasn't probably my most daring, but it was pretty daring.
That's pretty cool.
That's pretty insane.
Yeah.
I shot a guy once. Whoa, okay. We'll move on.
Yeah, it was funny. It was. It's like a 4-story car ferry.
Were you okay?
Yeah,
Did
we
you
did it
live?
deliberately. No, it was like a thing. Like every summer, a few guys would jump off the car ferry, and I was like 15. Me and my mates were like, oh, we'll do this. It'll be good. And then we actually bought tickets to Queenscliff. No, we had to buy tickets to Queenscliff to get on the ferry, but we bought return tickets because we were like, what happens if we shit ourselves, boys? It's cheap to get return. Let's just buy return. And then we got on there with no shoes on. They're like, oh. And then we got up there up the top, and then. Yeah, jumped off. It was funny. It was me. I didn't really. I was a little nervous, but I got up there and
just did it.
I was like, "Yeah, I'll do it." And it was me, Will Truscott, and Will was like, "Oh," I was like, "Yeah, I reckon I can do this." Will was like, "Oh, fuck, this." And our other mate, Gangers, his name was Gangalang. That was his nickname.
Gangalang.
Yeah.
Who's no longer with us because he jumped off the bloody.
But he was like, "No, there's no way. There's no way I'm doing it. There's no way." I'm like, "Oh shit!" So I jumped, got really excited, and then Will was like, "I'm going too." And Gangers didn't want to do it. He's like, "Nah, I'm not going." And then we all coaxed him, and he jumped off. But that was probably
peer pressure.
He's
one of their best friends.
One of the more daring things.
Yeah,
anyway, what else you got?
All right, so the bad. So authorities in the United Kingdom, have released several photos of a man they are seeking in connection with the theft of a Venetian blind. And while we can't say for certain what happened here, it does seem like the guy is hiding something. So there's a photo basically of a guy in an elevator, and he's got this big jacket on, and there's just a big Venetian blind in the jacket. Pretty bizarre stuff, but if you need a Venetian blind, you need a Venetian blind. The item was stolen from the Denell Mills store in Northampton sometime between 2 p.m. and 2:25 p.m. on Sunday, October 16th, according to authorities. Police say a man entered the store and allegedly concealed a Venetian blind down one trouser leg and up the back of his jacket. So my question to you guys is, what is the weirdest thing you have ever tried to steal, if you have in fact stolen anything?
Oh gosh.
Now we're under oath. We'll put it to Jo first because she's
no.
Well, Bill,
I've got one while you think.
Okay,
I had a little ring going when I was in high school. So it was just a theft ring. So me and a couple of my mates would go. We went to Padua College. I was a terrible kid. We went to Padua College, and we'd get dropped off at Safeways or Woolworths now.
Yeah.
So it's a supermarket in Australia for people that aren't Australian. And we would go in there. Do you remember Tech Decks, the little skateboards,
Oh, yeah.
the little tiny ones?
They were great.
Yeah, and they're like $15 a pop. So,
But for some reason, they were always sold out. Can you shed some light on? Yeah.
But I'd go in there with my school blazer and it had two big pockets on the inside, and I'd go and I'd fold up it had like the plastic casing, and then they had like the cardboard bit that hangs it on, and I'd fold that up and just put one in each pocket every day, and then I'd go to school the next day. They were $15 in Safeway. I'd sell them for like $8 or $10. I was making like $200 a week.
Yeah.
It was great.
That's so good.
That's insane. Any Tech Decks, Joe?
I've thought of one thing, and I was pretty young.
Yeah.
What are those Easter eggs? Is it a Cadbury cream egg?
Oh, love a Cadbury
And-
cream egg.
Yeah. So
Cadbury cream egg.
I was in the supermarket, and so I wanted to steal it, so I just shoved the whole thing in my mouth. But like unwrapped it and shoved it in, and I had a loose tooth, and so I had this huge Easter egg, and my tooth fell out while I was eating the Easter egg.
Instant karma.
Hey, what happened to the packaging? Oh, that's gold. All right.
That's good. You didn't actually leave the store, so I don't know if that's stealing or just eating.
It's kind of ate in it. Yeah. That's so true.
I paid for it on the way out.
Yeah. I paid for it, but I stole
Yeah.
it. So the science. 2 faults beneath California are connected in a destructive embrace. Once again revealing how little we know about what lies beneath our feet. A new study in the journal Science Advances has declared that a threatening fault in the San Francisco Bay is connected to another. Unfortunately, this means that the two could rupture simultaneously, creating a more powerful earthquake than many would have anticipated. Now, kind of an ambiguous question, but do you guys have a natural disaster that you would hate to be stuck in the most? Like some people hate. So for me, for example, I would hate to be caught in like a tsunami. Just reckon that would be shit house. But like maybe tornadoes you fancy, or an earthquake. What do you reckon? Which one do you hate the most?
Oh, well, I reckon tsunami would be pretty bad just because that's what you see in the movies, and
Yeah.
that just looks terrifying.
Yeah, it does.
Anything where you're talking about claustrophobia, I'm really claustrophobic. So
Agreed.
if you got like trapped under something, that would probably be pretty bad.
Yep. Wouldn't be the best.
Yeah, it would probably be.
I'd still be thinking about my macros though. Fat, who's the fat?
Yeah, that's interesting. Tsunami's pretty bloody scary.
Oh yeah. What about a volcano?
I've stood on top of a active volcano while it's
Really?
erupting. Yeah,
Wow, that's
It's the
cool.
best thing I've ever done.
While it was
Out of-
erupting.
While it's erupting. So the volcano is it's called Mount Tanna in Mount Yasua, sorry, on the island of Tanna in Vanuatu. And I've done some stuff in my travels, like some cool stuff. This is not even a question, the greatest thing I've ever done in history of my life. It was-
Really?
yeah, so it's like you hike up there, but it's like an hour hike. They drop you halfway. It's literally, the hike's not even part of it. It's not even hard at all. But I was there with my girlfriend at the time back in the day, like 10 years ago, and we went to Vanuatu and met with my family. It was like kind of we were doing our own thing, but we met with my family as well for a bit. We went over there. So it was my mum, my dad, Jack, me and my girlfriend. And you hike up the top of the volcano, and then the volcano is right on the ocean, and it gets like really strong winds from the ocean every day, the exact same. And for some reason, so you can stand on the crater of the top of the crater of the volcano, and you stand on like the east rim, sorry, and it erupts on the west wing? No.
Yep.
North, east, south. Yeah, west. And so you're safe. But it literally explodes like 100 little bits of lava up in the air, 50 metres above your head, 100
Really?
metres above your head, every 5 minutes.
Really?
It's
Wow.
insane.
But how did that
That's
not hit you?
incredible.
There's on the rim, the safe rim, the guide will take you around. And he's like, oh yeah, this rock wasn't here a week ago. This rock wasn't here a week ago. So literally, like people have died. There's been like 8 fatalities in the last 20 years or whatever. But there's hundreds of people that go nearly every day.
Yeah.
So it's pretty safe. But you know how you can go to active volcanoes, you can see them bubbling away and stuff
Yeah.
like that. This is not like that. This is ground shakes.
Really?
A volcano like you think of a volcano.
Yeah.
It's called Mount Yasua. For any listeners that ever plan on going to Vanuatu, it's the greatest thing I've ever done. Anytime anyone mentions Vanuatu to me, I'm like, whoa, listen to this, listen to this. It's so sick.
Shit.
Yeah, that's
But yeah,
incredible.
volcanoes are scary. But I reckon Tsunami, you're done.
Yeah,
Done
tsunami,
and
you're
dusted.
done.
See you
Well, I mean,
later.
most of them you're done, surely. Like,
Hurricanes and typhoons,
Oh, yeah, that's
like
true.
they're all pretty bad, but you can get
tsunami,
through
you
those.
could.
Just
Yeah.
batten down the hatches.
Yeah.
Batten them down. Real good.
Yeah, we had to batten down the hatches in Belize once, and we just bought. There was 3 days that we had to buy food and water for, and we bought about 10 litres of rum and a couple of bags of cocaine, and just had a fucking lockdown like you've never seen before.
A session.
Yeah, it was sick.
Yeah.
Hurricane Matthew.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Hurricane cocaine. All right. That's good. And that was the good about the science.
cool, good stuff, Tommy.
So good.
So, Joe, I want to talk about the ketogenic diet.
Yep.
Have you played around with it yourself personally?
Not strictly ketogenic. So I haven't been in ketosis before myself. But definitely I've done like a higher carb, lower carb approach. And that works quite well for me. So ketogenic diet, have you tried it before or?
Nope.
No?
Nope. About to in the next week. We're going to try.
Oh, really?
We're going to go for it. So
Okay, cool. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so I guess for people that don't know what the ketogenic diet is, it's a very high fat, very low carb diet. So you're looking at about 75% fat, can go up to 90% fat, and only 5% from carbohydrates. So it's extremely low carb. What that actually does is it forces your body into a state of ketosis where you only use fatty acids for a fuel. But it also means that the liver will convert fatty acids into ketones because your brain will predominantly use glucose as a fuel source. But in the absence of glucose, when you have very minimal carbohydrates, your brain can use ketones as a fuel source. So the liver will produce those ketones and that's what your brain uses. Super, super beneficial for certain groups of people. So a lot of studies have shown that it's really great for people with type 2 diabetes. Certainly very overweight people. It can be really effective to drop weight quite quickly. And also really effective in people, particularly children that have seizures or epilepsy. So there's some great research around ketogenic diets for those types of people.
Right.
But again, it's really going to depend on the person because it can have some side effects as well, because it is quite extreme. So I think for a lot of people, you have to know the rules before you can start breaking them. So if you, like, I'm sure you have a very good understanding of your body, nutrition, been training and eating well for years, then absolutely give it a trial, see how you feel on it. But just pay attention to your body and what it's telling you, because in some groups it's not going to be the best. So when you have very low carb, it can actually interfere with thyroid function. So when we eat carbohydrates, they get broken down into glucose and we get the release of the hormone insulin. And with our thyroid, so your thyroid controls metabolism and hormones and a whole host of things. We need insulin to convert the inactive thyroid hormone 4 into the active form, which is Th3. So if you don't have enough insulin, that process is going to be impaired. So some people, not everyone, but some people will have some thyroid issues. It can also influence your gut health. So generally on a ketogenic diet, you're cutting out a lot of those fibrous foods. So as I mentioned before, your gut bacteria is all the way down in your low intestine. And so we need to eat foods, so things that contain resistant starch that are going to get all the way down so we can feed those good guys. So that's things like brown rice and potatoes and unripe bananas and those types of foods. Generally, they're not really suitable for a ketogenic diet. So some people can experience or develop some gut issues as well.
Right.
Yeah.
So
the potential benefits are like, you people say they're really focused, or is that the stuff?
mental acuity,
Yeah,
mental acuity,
definitely.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Is that only sustainable for a short period of time?
Not necessarily. Again, it just depends on the person. So some people do absolutely fantastically on a ketogenic diet and they feel amazing. They're really alert. They lose a lot of weight, so they've got a really good body composition or their blood markers are great. Whereas another person might do it for 4 weeks and just fall in an absolute heap and feel like complete rubbish. I think if you do it, it's a good idea to get your bloods done as well, just to keep track of it, because some people are hyper responders to fat and cholesterol. So some people's markers can really just shoot up, but that's not everyone. So just, track it, get your blood tests and do it that way. So there's definitely some benefits, but I think that you just have to be smart about it and just see how you go.
So with the so if I was to do it, which I'm going to give it a crack.
Cool.
So obviously you got to take in lots and lots of fats, lots and lots of protein. That's easy enough. So what would you do if you're trying to get all your micronutrients in? Like, what would you eat in carbohydrates? Like your green. Like what are the best carbs to get in during the day, albeit you can only have X amount?
Yeah.
What's the best, like most healthiest way to be a ketogenic diet?
Well, you nailed it. It's just load up on all your green leafies, all your non-starchy veggies, just getting as much of those in as you can. I'd be taking a greens powder as well, a green supplement just for extra micronutrients. But yeah, just aiming to get all your carbs from those non-starchy veg.
Cool.
Yeah,
it's interesting because I always hear the people that have been on it that I hear, they do drop a lot of weight, like tons and tons of weight. But you have obviously... Well, I don't know. Doesn't seem like you've recommended this to anyone that for weight loss. Is that because it's just so hard to maintain?
Yeah.
Like, that's the reason I haven't started it.
Exactly.
I'm like, oh, fuck, it can't be fucked.
Exactly. That's exactly the reason. It's really hard to maintain and it's just too difficult for people.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't recommend it. Generally, for my line of work, extremes aren't good.
Yeah, too easy to fall off the wagon.
Yeah, they're not good for most people. The other difficult thing about a ketogenic diet is you mentioned lots of protein. You kind of can't have lots of protein as well. You have to be careful with the amount of protein you have.
Yeah, gotcha.
Because protein can be converted into glucose via gluconeogenesis.
Of course.
And so that means...
Absolutely. Well, that's obvious.
Yeah.
Didn't need to say that.
I've been neogening my glucose for years.
Yeah, so you can't go crazy on protein either, which makes it quite difficult. And then you're just reliant on those. You probably just be eating the same types of fats.
Fats are so limited too.
Yeah, they are.
That's why. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm anaphylaxis and nuts, so I can literally eat an avocado and that's about it.
Oh, really? Yeah.
It's good fun.
Coconut?
I can eat coconut.
You can eat coconut? Yeah. But no, it would be pretty hard for you. So.
Yeah, I suck.
Yeah.
To any listeners that don't know what the ketogenic diet is, it's also referred to as, well, the bulletproof diet is like a ketogenic diet with a little bit more carbs, I think.
Yeah, there's a lot of different variations. So you can do a cyclic ketogenic diet with carb refeeds. All that sort of stuff. So.
Yeah, cool.
So have you got all your stuff organised of what you're going to do?
Me? No, we haven't. Right. No.
I can see some brain octane up there.
Yeah, I've got brain octane over there. I was having that for a little while. I didn't really feel like...
It was working. That's because you're hammering donuts every day.
No, but it wasn't to be ketogenic. That's just supposed to make you like...
Yeah, but doesn't sugar make you super flat?
1,000,000% smarter. All switched on. I'm like, I feel dumb as fuck.
Someone's recording this podcast half the time.
I'm just like, glug. Yeah, right, guys, I'll tell you about climate change. Bring it in. Yeah, cool. So what's been some of your greatest accomplishments in, or like most rewarding things that have happened to you in your line of work? I'm sure there's been plenty.
Yeah, well, I'd hope to think that I help most people in, if it's a big or small way. I'm just trying to think. Recent clients, definitely that guy that I told you about before with the sinus issues. Just because I get constant emails from him about, pretty much every second week about his PBs in the gym and what he's doing. So that's really cool. I just recently had a client with fibromyalgia. So that's a condition where you have severe muscle pain and joint pain, and it interferes with sleep. And she's really into high intensity training and boxing, not CrossFit, but like personal training. And it was really impacting her doing what she loved. So she was eating probably more of a highly refined carbohydrate diet, but and fair enough, because it's what was recommended for so long, but it was more like your corn thins and rice cakes and toast. And so we switched to much more an anti-inflammatory diet, so very high in omega-3s and lots of, non-starchy veg and lots of good fats. And when she came back to see me, her pain had completely gone away. Wow. So that was really cool. So yeah, just things like that. Just every day is really, really rewarding for me. No matter how big or small the change is, someone might just, come to me and say, I just feel I have so much more energy, and it might just be as simple as that. But so it's just all those little things as well.
Cool.
What about for you specifically? Like, do you have like one little thing that you implemented into your diet, or maybe like a lifestyle thing? Let's make it a bit more general. And it just was the best thing you've ever done, sort of thing.
I think when I discovered how good fats were, because I would say my diet is pretty high fat compared to most other diets, and just the satiety that it gives you as well. Like, it just makes such a huge difference. Like, I can go, 6 or 7 hours and not even worry about food. And I think that increasing the fats and all the healthy fats in my diet really changed the way I felt and my energy levels, how I looked, but definitely the satiety and just not having that focus around food all the time. I have to eat every 2 to 3 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
Only us, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. You save so much more time.
Yeah.
So, and it also just like on flights, like I'll get on a flight to Bali and just be able to not eat the whole time and then just like smash a nasi goreng when I get there. Like, it's really convenient not to have to worry about eating plain food and, all that sort of stuff. So
100%.
So I've got to figure all that stuff out, because I must be a habitual thing, but I just hammer plain food. And I just hammer I've got to
free,
sort it
right?
out.
I try and get 2 meals in.
You get 2 meals in?
Sitting next to a dude.
Same.
Sitting next to a dude once, and we got our meals and we finished them. And then he put his meal down and he looks at the flight attendant. He's like, "Excuse me." He says, "Yes, sir." He goes, "Can I get another meal?"
Yeah.
And she goes, "Yes, of course, sir." I looked over at him and went, "What the fuck is happening?"
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
And it depends on what airplane, but I try and just load up.
Airplane.
What?
Depends on what airplane.
Fucking what am I supposed to say?
I don't know. It just made me laugh.
Flight carrier.
Yeah. Car hole.
Sorry, mate.
There was just no emphasis on the R there. It just was bizarre. Airplane.
Yeah.
so you can do that.
Anyway, yeah.
There you
So
go.
it's not the best food, but
It's not too bad though, is it, Shirley?
It's pretty bad. Like,
Yeah.
it's
Shit.
loaded with just so much preservative
Yeah.
and salt, and I just feel so much better when, particularly on the long haul flights, like I just don't have jet lag or anything if I just eat nothing or my own food.
Yep.
I just bring my own food, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
And then you're allowed to do that?
Yeah. So if I fly to Europe, last year I had to go to Denmark for work, and I just make like a quinoa salad with like roast veggies and kale and stuff that doesn't go soggy. And just take like, protein balls, fruit, nuts, and that will get me through. Yeah.
Okay. Alrighty, guys, just a quick word from our sponsors. Actually, a quick word from me, but I'm going to tell to you about our sponsors. So True Pride are a wealth creation service who work with ambitious individuals and families looking to take control, worry less and get ahead. If you're looking for a way to take control, worry less and get ahead when it comes to your money, True Pride is a wealth coaching business that will genuinely provide you with the tools you need to fast track this. So I've been doing it, and I know it kind of sounds like I'm always saying the same thing and they're really helping me, and I'm saving money and all this sort of stuff. But I actually am. I honestly am saving money, guys. And I've got savings starting to bank up in the old account, which I'm actually really pumped about. So, I was a little bit nervous initially because I was like, I'm going to jump into this thing and I could really just spend time doing it myself. But it really does work. So if you want to honestly start budgeting correctly, guys, and you want to start saving, which we all need to do, head to www.truepride.com.au/ADVF and you will get $297 waived when you book or call via their website. Next one along, guys, is Carve. So Carve is a company that specializes in anything digital, from building apps, designing a logo, automating your business, down to setting up your next event. Carve is the partner to be when you want to have more time to focus on the things you love and scale your business down. Getting rid of all the shitty stuff that you really don't want to do but it has to be done anyway. Offset that overseas. It will get done. It is nice and cheap, and they still get paid very well over there. Get 10 hours free on any project by heading to www.carve.ph/ADVF. Finally, guys, here's the show. So
Yeah,
there's
I
no
take one.
quarantine issues there
I
with
take
that? 'Cause
I take
you're just eating
No,
on the plane,
if you
I guess.
eat it on the plane, you can't obviously take it off the plane,
yeah.
but not getting through. Like I look a bit weird, like with
Yeah.
heaps of food in my bag. But
a garden patch in your backpack.
yeah, yeah. But apart from that, no, it's fine to take onto the plane. You just can't take it off.
Yeah, okay, cool. I got to start doing that.
Yeah.
I won't.
Yeah.
I take when I go to Bali. Sometimes can't really be bothered anymore. But when I was like training heaps and taking it real seriously, I'd take tuna and sardines and stuff in my bag.
And just hammer them on the plane.
Nah, just on the trip.
Oh,
I'd
just
put it
over
in my
there.
check-in.
Yeah, that's
and you
good.
you get through sweet because whenever I would be in Bali, I could never find like enough protein.
Yeah.
You know, with them, if you go out to a restaurant, you could, but if I'm like snacking after a surf,
Yeah.
whatever, like there's always fruit and like I would always have nuts as well. So I have like a massive bag of macadamia nuts, put them through as banana chips, $9.99 a kilo. Thank you very much.
Well, it's good. That's what I do with avocados. I put them through as red onions.
Do
Geez,
you?
this guy's eating a lot of onions. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I
Just a
taught
good looking onion.
I taught Jill how
That's so
to take advantage of the self-serve checkout. And
Oh, yeah.
she literally now is a full-time thief.
Yeah, it works well.
She's
Yeah.
like,
I've got to start doing this.
It works very well.
I'm too scared to go to the supermarket now. So I feel like I'm walking with fucking Billy the Kid or something.
Yeah. Well, I started questioning. Myself where I put like a kilo of salmon through as like an avocado. You can't do that. So like, come on.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. But cool. So
good.
Joe, what's next on the radar for you? Personally, as a business wise or anything coming up?
Yeah, I'm starting a group 2-week cleanse next week, which is really exciting. So just kind of like a little bit of a detox with a whole group of people. And really it's like, you know, the word detox has a bit of a stigma around it, but really it's just giving your body a break, take the pressure off your liver. So like getting rid of all those liver loaders like caffeine and alcohol and refined sugar, and taking a few not so great tasting herbs. They're not too bad, but just to help the liver and the detoxification system. So we're starting that on Monday, which is really exciting. But for people that are missing out on this one, I'm going to be running them throughout the year. Yeah, so that's really exciting. Personally, I'm getting married in 3 weeks, so I can't really see
Perfect time.
beyond that.
We're going to get a gig now, Tom.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, that's happy birthday.
We can do a live podcast from the from the thing.
And Mrs. Guy is currently walking down the aisle and is looking. There's a ring. There's a ring. And she said I do. She said I do. I played a song.
Yes. Can you please do that?
That's great.
yeah,
Where are you
so-
getting married?
Just in South Melbourne, actually.
Really?
At Luminaire.
Oh, okay. I don't know where that is.
Yeah, it's a rooftop, so it's like got a huge deck and it's got the whole city behind it.
Beautiful.
And yeah, it's
And you're
really,
marrying that Huey guy for some reason.
Yeah.
I've heard things
Shame.
about
Yeah.
it.
Real shame.
Yeah. I'll see him every now and then.
No, I love the
He's a
Huey.
Heath legend.
He's a leg end.
A leg on.
Genuine
He's
benign.
a hummus.
I'm never going to be able to say that word again.
Oh, very good.
Right, so I think we'll go to 6 from 6.
Yeah, I think so.
So, Joe, 3 questions from me, 3 questions from Tommy to finish us off. So, are you a well-travelled lady?
I would say so, yes.
Okay.
I love travel.
Cool.
Live to travel.
Cool. So my question is, what's your favourite destination on the planet? Place you've been? It can be big, small, can be a country, can be a small town, can be anyway.
Okay. Well, we did a big trip to South America earlier this year, so that's pretty fresh in my mind, and that was absolutely incredible. So probably the highlight was we did a trek. We did the Salcantay trek, so climbed the glacier and then into Machu Picchu, and I wasn't really sure what to expect with Machu Picchu. I wasn't sure if it was going to be like just the cliche tourist thing, but it really was like one of the most magical, spiritual kind of experiences ever.
right?
Yeah, so that was really amazing. I think that would be.
Is Salcantay like the 9 or 10 day? How long is Salcantay trek?
That was 5 days.
5 days.
But it was pretty challenging because so you're climbing up a glacier. So our first night, I can't remember the altitude, but Huey did actually get altitude sickness and it was like -10. So it was, he went too hard, too early. So, and then so you're in minus 10 conditions, and then you get to the top and you come back down, and then you're in the Amazon and you're like putting the DEET on and it's like 30 degrees and you're in jungle. So it's a pretty crazy experience.
Is that ice picks and crampons style like when you climb the glacier?
Nah, definitely not. It was tough though. It was really tough, but
cool.
Nah, not that full on.
No worries.
Tough for me.
Sounds epic. That's my favourite part of the world too, by a mile.
Is
South
it?
America. Yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
super cool.
And your dream destination, same thing, can be anywhere, can be big, small.
Dream destination. South America was such a big bucket list item, so I haven't really thought beyond that. But I've always wanted to go to Cuba and just drink mojitos and dance salsa. I don't know why.
Cool.
That's just always been in the back of my mind to do. Yeah.
For sure. All right, cool. So my last question is any books that you've read that you've recommended to people? They can be just a fun read or educational read or...
Yeah, that I recommend to people.
Or that you would recommend to our listeners in particular.
Okay. I always have The Power of Now beside my bed, and I haven't read the whole thing for a really long time, but sometimes I can just pick it up anywhere and just read a paragraph and it kind of just calms me. And so that's Eckhart Tolle. So that's just...
Trying to get him on the show, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm in touch with his manager.
Oh, that would be so good.
Yeah. What do you think of all the stuff he talks about with the religious symbolism, like Jesus and the Bible? And
You trying to prove me wrong here, Tommy?
yeah, I am. I'm literally, that is exactly what I'm thinking.
I can't even remember that part, to be honest.
Yeah, he talks about all of the stuff like Jesus talking about all the parables and all that sort of stuff, and how it really was just him symbolising what it's like to be in the present moment.
Be in the present, yeah.
You know how, for example, the one that I always say to people that haven't read the book is the kingdom of heaven is all around you. And fundamentalist Christians will take it as, if we're really good, then we go to heaven when we die, and it's a place up there where you get to, get with 40 virgins. Oh no, that's not it. That's
wrong religion, bro.
Yeah, that's Muslim. Sorry, that could have been offensive there. Hamas. No, but it's something like that, as opposed to the kingdom of heaven is around you. If you're just not worrying about the future and you're not sad about the past, you're just in this eternal happiness.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of truth in that.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool. No, I can't remember that part of it. But the main thing that goes over in my head just from day-to-day life is, when you get really caught up in thoughts and you're just like, repeating the same thing over and over. It does state in one section that 80 to 90% of our thoughts are just useless, and really our brains should just be used for tasks, and when the task is over, then you should just try and have a quiet mind and just focus on whatever you're doing. So when I get really caught up in just like silly things, you're just like going over something that your friend said 3 days ago, or you're worrying about something in the future, and like it's all just useless thoughts, and that's just something that kind of really resonated with me.
It's a good book.
Yeah, it's really good. I really love reading. I read every night, so I'm a pretty big reader. One of the books I'm reading at the moment is called Talk Like TED, and it's all about how to give the best presentation. So it's amazing. It's not just for people that, stand up and give big presentations. Like a lot of people give a presentation just in meetings or whatever it might be, but it's really cool. So it goes through all the elements that make a fantastic presentation, and it has the links of some of the best TED Talks. So and then you go and like watch the cool TED Talks, and so it's a really good one as well.
I had that one in my Audible. Is that an actual TED book? Is it produced by TED?
No.
Not the guy.
Is
not
TED
like
a bloke? Oh, right.
No, not the guy that started it. No.
There's a book that was it might not be the same one, but it was about how to give TED Talks, and I had it in my Audible. I wanted to check it out.
I think there are a few actually.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. There's so many books. I could go on forever. But one I do recommend to people to read is Thrive by Arianna Huffington. I don't know if you've read that one, but she talks about the meaning of success. And to most people, success is money and power. And she had both of those things with such a successful business, the Huffington Post. But she ended up collapsing, was in hospital, and she wasn't happy, and she's like, there has to be more to success than just money and power. So she came up with this third metric, and there's 4 aspects to this third metric, and it's well-being, wisdom, wonder, and giving. And so she goes through those different aspects. And And so it's really good coming from such a high-powered woman to talk about wellness and the importance of sleep and meditation and giving and just finding that wonder in the world. Like, you know, we kind of lose that. Children have it, but as we get older, we lose that wonder. And so that's a really fantastic one in terms of health, I guess.
That's cool. All right. What do you like to do in your downtime when you're not? I understand you're very busy, but when you have some spare time, what do you like to do?
I generally like to move, so just do my movement stuff and not necessarily going to the gym and doing a full workout, but it could just be getting outside, going into the park, practicing handstands.
Good.
Yes. slowly getting there. Taking my dog for a walk. I also just love the cafe culture of Melbourne. So going out for a Sunday brekkie with my coconut latte and with Huey and the dog and friends and just reading the paper and I really
just
like
chilling
to do
out.
that.
Because you do Ido Portal at the gym, don't you? Is that what you do? The movement stuff?
Yes. So I did 2 of his seminars and that kind of started me on the movement journey, I guess. It's so corny to say that. But I have a movement teacher, I guess. His name's
right.
Jules Burgermeister. Jules, yeah.
I did some stuff with Jules.
Yeah, very, very knowledgeable. So I work with him and he does all my programming.
Oh, cool. Okay. Now, second question is biggest role model growing up or current inspiration if you didn't really have a big role model.
Okay. Growing up, and I guess so many people would say this, but probably my mum and dad, and still now because they were super hardworking. Both my parents are pharmacists. They actually owned their own pharmacy for like 30 years, so I had a small business. But now they're just, they're still in such a great relationship. They have so many friends. I think they've got more of a social life than me. So I just really look up to them in that way. In terms of like more of a work role model, she's a nutritional biochemist and her name's Dr. Libby Weaver.
Yep.
She's more into women's health, but she's just my absolute inspiration. She's very, very knowledgeable. She did nutrition and dietetics, but she then went to study for another 10 years and she gives some really fantastic seminars and she's written a lot of great books and I really look up to her. She's amazing.
Okay, and then final question is if you could invite 3 people dead or alive to dinner, who would they be and why would they be there?
This is a hard one.
It is very tough.
Yeah.
I always stump people on this one.
Really? Yeah. I think because you get a bit overwhelmed because there's just so many amazing people that you could ask. Firstly, I'd probably have the Dalai Lama because I just absolutely love him. He's just hilarious. I can just sit and watch YouTube clips of him talking and it doesn't even matter what he's saying. He's just so cute what he says. So
I have to go to the bathroom. Dalai.
How could you not feel good about sitting around a table having dinner with Dalai Lama? Secondly, I've been reading Tony Robbins lately, so I think he would be pretty cool. I'm not into like the
He's
whole...
going to take up 2 seats probably. You're going to have to lay him down sideways and prop his head on the table.
Yeah, that's it. Not massively into the whole like screaming and crying and all that stuff that he does at his seminars, but super intelligent, very intuitive person. Thirdly...
He's a billionaire, isn't he? Yeah, that's cool.
What the hell? That's a strange question.
And
pretty rich, I am.
He's got money.
He's definitely got a lot of money.
That's cool.
Probably Ido Portal. Maybe he could help me with my press handstand just on the dining table.
That's good. Have some food, have some perfect ketones.
Yeah.
That'd be nice.
You might be able to press handstand walk across a fire. Across some hot coals. While the Dalai Lama makes you laugh.
Yeah.
I don't think what the Dalai Lama does.
Very good. All right. Well, where can people find you, Joe? Social medias, anything you would like to PLUG plug?
Okay.
And not in the hummus.
Yes. The hummus.
That's such a good sound effect too.
Oh my God. My mouth is so full of laughing. So my website is just joeguy.com.au.
Yep.
Instagram is joeguy_dietitian. And that's probably the main things that I use.
Yep.
Yeah, where people can find
Any
me.
more spots available for your cleanse coming up?
Yeah, absolutely. So it starts on Monday, but I'll be doing another one in about 3 months. So
Cool.
yeah,
Okay.
I'll launch that then.
Sounds good.
Cool.
Awesome. That was fun.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot for coming on the show, Joe.
Thanks so much for having me.
No worries. And that's a wrap. Alrighty, guys. If you enjoyed that show, please subscribe. You can do that on whatever platform you're listening on, be that iTunes or Stitcher, or you can go and subscribe at Adventure Fit Travel's YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe. That really helps us climb the ratings, get more downloads, and grow the show into the future. Also, anything that you want from the show notes, they can be found at www.adventurefittravel.com/radio. And last but not least, make sure you check out trueprotein.com.au. Use the code ADVF for 10% off. And 10% off at www.adventurefittravel.com. Use the code radio. Thanks, guys. See you next week.
Discovery Roger, go for the